So welcome everybody. New, welcome. Well, you're not new because you've been learning. She's been learning it for 3 years, Samar. So yeah, she's gonna put us all to shame. Okay, so welcome back everybody. It's been some time. Lots have happened. Yontif, wars. But like we're really all here. Like I always think, like as women, like what can we do? Like what's our like most like? Okay, we're not. Yes, in Israel and Eretz Yisrael, these girls, these women, they go out to war. It's like very, very impressive. I'm always like, I would just do like border patrol. You know, like, I don't know if I could get out there. You would cook? I would cook, right? I would cook for the soldiers. Like, actually, last Pesach in Orlando, we went paintballing, and with, like, my kids and, like, all these families, like, Leah Rosenzweig and everybody, and they were all, like, ready. And, like, I got hit in the back of my head for a second. I'm like, I'm out. Like, I can't. I'm like, if there was a Holocaust, I'm out. We took an Uber home. I left my kids there. I was like, I can't do this. So not that I get scared, but I'm like, what can we combat with? So I think that like just one lesson that I've been hearing all this time, like throughout the world, like what can we do? What can we do? Obviously, we're like, what do you mean? Like we're from and we're Shomer Shabbos and we're doing stuff. So what more can we do? And I think it's really like the answer that we've been getting, like from Rabbi Yossi and just everything that I've been learning, all like Pneumius is just leading me to do everything that you're doing to do it b'simcha. And it just like happens to be that these are the last few chapters that we've been learning in Tanya. Like the first 8 were like, you know, we're telling you about who you are. Then 18 to 25 was teaching us all these, even 16, 17, literally through 25, we're just teaching us tools. And then since 26 and 27, now we're going to get to 28, is really all about your emotions. And it's a funny thing because it's like we went from Tanya, which was like so intellectual and like, very much like using your mind and using your brain, and now we're saying that if you don't have the right emotion when you're doing it, you're gonna lose. It's not even oh, it's gonna be hard, it's gonna be an uphill battle. Like we gave that mashal of the 2 wrestlers that if somebody who was the best wrestler was in a bad mood, or I don't know, a kid missed the bus in the morning and it threw them off their like thing. Bina's lunch is sitting over here. I'm gonna go drop it off, but like. If it throws you off, what? You were just there. I know. I'm very tempted to be like, anybody driving to Tag? And then I'm like, Faigy, it's 4 minutes. Like, drive it. So if something throws you off, then you lose. That's it. You lose your whole day. So I think that one thing that I've just been taking from everything that's going on in Eretz Yisrael is obviously do more mitzvos, do more. Stop. Like the Rebbe was saying, like stop. Like not scrolling. What was that word that she said? Like when we were doing tell them stop. I forgot, Sarah actually had the word. It was like, stop consuming, like, because the news and everything, like, after Shabbos, everyone's on their phone and start doing. Like, just start doing. So I think, first of all, we always have, like, all the mitzvahs that we do as a woman, but learning Torah as a woman, it's transformative. So this is what we're doing. This is our weapon. I'm not going to go paintballing. I'm not going to lift a gun, but I will lift my weapons from Tanya and use it to get through our mood swings, to get closer to Mashiach, and to reveal it a little bit more.
It's very grounding, so that you can do the simple. You can't do the simple if you're all over the place, but like it
right.
Focuses you.
It focuses you. I also was thinking about this, like when it comes to like shalom, like the concept of like everybody, we just want peace. When it means like we want peace, like peace is shlemus. Like anything that's shalom is complete, is like it can feel scattered and it can feel like it doesn't make sense. Why is this happening? But the whole idea, like, and Rabbi Nachman always says this, is that you bring all those pieces to the table and that forms a circle. So all your points of scared, anxiety, terror, all those fears, you bring it closer. That's what brings shlemus. That's what brings shalom. And when you have shalom, in kliya machzik bracha al shalom, like shalom is the biggest kli. It's the biggest. So when we feel grounded and we feel at peace, which like, I couldn't sleep some nights. Like I can't. Like and just like whatever. It was probably a mixture of like COVID and like Simchas Torah or whatever it was. But like couldn't sleep. And the idea is that you don't feel grounded. But when you're learning this, somehow it like grounds you. You're right. It is. It's like a little bit of a settling feeling. Okay. So we'll just go back a second to the last 2 chapters of what we were doing. So we were learning chapter 26. We started this new thing on mood swings. Like we were talking about our emotions, and you have to. We spoke about different problems. Remember, we spoke about. Okay, if anybody's up to date, I don't remember. So let's do this together. Okay, like Chazara. We spoke about there's financial problems, physical problems, right? Physical problems that. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have more chairs in the kitchen. I know. I never know who's gonna come. Now, where's everyone stopping at Dunkin' Donuts? That's always me. I stroll into work an hour late, and I was I had so much traffic. They're like, but you're closing a Starbucks. And I'm like, but there's a drive-through. It's actually closing. I know. It was always my little treat. I'm going to work. I'm such a good girl. I deserve a coffee, you know. So we spoke about in 26. We said there's physical problems, the physical problems are the financial problems with children, problems with money, problems with physical things. And how did we approach our physical problems? What do we say? I'm looking, I'm who is here, who remembers? What do we do when we have physical problems and it makes us upset? Okay, I don't have enough money, I can't serve Hashem. So then what do we do? How do we tie it back? I can't hear you.
Hold on, I'm listening again.
Are you parked on the right side of the street?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. So what we were doing is we were talking about moods. Okay, I'll get you back on track. We were talking about moods and how moods really affects you. And if you have all these other moods, if you have physical problems, it affects your mood. What do we do for it? Turn to Hashem. But how do we direct it? What was it? There was remember there was physical problems and then there was spiritual problems. Spiritual problems were guilt. Remember? And we were saying how guilt is such a bad thing. We're always feeling guilty. Guilt, we say, the whole idea is basically all these problems are the Yetzer Hara. So how do we face the Yetzer Hara? How do we go back to the Yetzer Hara? What do we tell the Yetzer Hara when we're feeling these things? Obviously Hashem is bigger than our problems. Or we also, by the way, we always say, I always quote this song, I feel like I did this before, Yonatan Reizal, we tell our problems how big Hashem is, right? So we kind of obliterate our physical problems, okay, that way, and then those physical problems move aside. Then we have spiritual problems. Hi. I have more chairs in the kitchen, I'm so sorry. I'm so grateful, people are here. I'm okay. We spoke about, and this one is a little bit my favorite, is guilt, because we always say oh, I have Jewish guilt, right? Where does Jewish guilt come from? Is it genetic? I don't know. Jewish guilt is a problem. But guilt, we say, thank you, Mary, I'm sorry. I'll give everybody a second. Sit down, take your coffee. I'm always this is not a marathon, right? Yom Kippur is a marathon, but I use that quote so many times.
Do you really?
Yes. Mary's I'm wearing sneakers to shul. It's my marathon. I have to. So it's a spiritual marathon. Okay, so we spoke about physical problems, and then we spoke about spiritual problems. And these are all things that are stopping us from connecting to Hashem. So we said the spiritual problems is guilt. Guilt comes from a very bad place. Guilt comes from just stopping me to do the thing. I feel so guilty, right? Or I'm so sad. By the way, you could relate this to how everybody's feeling right now.
That guilt is ego.
Guilt is also ego, right? Guilt, because we were saying it's easier to say, oh, I'm so guilty, I'm not going to do anything, but then you only care about yourself, you don't care about the other things, right? We were talking about this, I think 2 classes ago, how suicide is sometimes glorified, but it's much easier to commit suicide than to actually have to do the work. So guilt is just me saying, I can't move forward. So it is the Yetzer Hara in another form, but it's a spiritual problem. It's a problem that's very spiritual people have. Not spiritual people, they keep their problems in the physical world. Spiritual people, they take it deeper and they're oh, I'm so guilty, I did this wrong, I messed up, I shouldn't have screamed at her, now she's gonna have a bad day. No, she's gonna forget, trust me. On the way to school, she's gonna forget that you screamed at her. But the problem is that you think that you're so guilty and you're oh my gosh, I'm such a bad person, and then you can't get on with your day. Stop feeling guilty. There's no such thing as guilt. I mean, I literally, I just had this, with my husband, I went away for Shabbos and he was oh, I feel so bad, I can't go. And I'm this saying, I feel so bad, is the wrong thing. This is the right thing. I'm going to go. You're going to stay home with the kids. Stop feeling guilty. The problem is that guilt runs in 24 hours, 48 hours later. You're oh, but I feel so bad. That's a spiritual problem. That's the Yetzer Hara trying to get you to stop doing what you're supposed to be doing. That was guilt. That was a way to get out of your mood. Then the last week, bless you, when it was just Paloma and I, and we had a little chavrusa, and it was a monsoon outside, and people were in Eretz Yisrael and whatever, I decided last minute, no, we're going to do a class. And we spoke about shame. And shame is such a dirty word, because shame means I didn't yell at my kid, but I just know that I have anger issues. So I'm never going to be able to overcome my problems, which is an even bigger problem than guilt. Because guilt is you acted on it, and you're oh my gosh, I feel bad about it, and ruminating. Shame is even deeper because I never had to put it out there. I never even had to do anything. I just know that I'm an angry person. I just know that I'm a selfish person. And I let that get in the way of doing the things that I need to do, because all of a sudden it'll just pop into my head and I'll be oh my God, like, who do I think that I am to serve Hashem? Like, I've done so many things wrong, or I'm such a bad person, or when I was a kid, I was a pathological liar. Like, whatever it is. And then you're like, maybe I'm always a liar. Maybe I'm always this. And you start to think these things about yourself, and it stops you. So that was shame. And then we said that we have to train ourselves, that we have to stop ourselves like immediately. It's literally like a practice. And the second you stop yourself, it's all about leverage. So like the more you control yourself, the stronger you get. Like you lift 10 pound weights, you lift 20 pound weights, you lift 30 pound weights. So don't think that, oh, I got over this hump and I'm good. You're going to have something even stronger come to you, and it's really about the leverage. And you want to have the most impact. So you want to take your feelings that you have and you want to push it the most aside to the left so that you can act the way that you want to. Okay, that was just all recap. How are we doing? Yeah? Okay, take a deep breath. Everyone can re-listen to classes, don't worry. I want to get into this because this one happens to be a very, very important one, and I had this conversation actually with a few people over Yontif when it came to davening. So like, and here's another thing, like this is, I always feel that all the classes happen to align with the week, or I just, you like try to make it like fit into this week's parsha, like Hamas was in the parsha, happens to be, I was at a bar mitzvah and I was like literally reading every word of Bereshit because it was like my friend's son leaning, and I'm like, I have to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm like, oh, and I have to do this again next week, for my son, which is really nice, but like, I was like, wow, like, and I love Parshas Bereshit, like there's so much in it, and then the Haftorah, and then I was like, oh, the war, like everything is so there, and I get it, how everything really fits, but this specific chapter that we're doing, 28, is about tefillah, about davening. And I think that when it comes to davening, like as women, we're always like, oh, we're so good at it. Like it's natural. And I'm like, really? How's it natural? Like if I say bracha, I literally want to make a sing-along for davening so that I could listen and sit daven while I'm driving. Because like when else am I going to daven? Like if I have a busy morning, like if I don't have a busy morning, then I could daven. I've been in shul like the whole Shabbos, like this week, because I was like, I don't have my children or my husband, so I was like, every tefillah, I'm like, what time is mincha? They're like, oh, we're davening mincha after lunch. I'm like, yes. When men catch a mincha after lunch, they're like so happy. Even though I feel like in our shul it would not fly. We're going to be like, no, mincha's at 5:30. Like that's when you come down, and and then there's a shir. But for those who want to chap a mincha, and I was like, davening we are very much connected to it, but it's not really our mitzvah, because like we're not like, we don't have to be there shachas mincha ma'ariv, but we know that now like everyone's like, we need your tefillos, we need your davening, we need your tehillim. So obviously this is what comes up with it, but we're thinking about what we're doing now really is like troubleshooting our emotions. So we're davening, okay? All of a sudden, what happens the second you open up a siddur? Your phone rings, or you're davening on your phone, so then your messages are coming up. You ever have that? Like I'm like, oh, I'll just daven on my phone, and then I'm like, like picking them up, right? Or like all of a sudden I'm like, okay, let me make a grocery list, like in my head, like it's Monday, I need to restock my house. There are these like, not even evil thoughts. It's not like, oh my God, I need to speak Lashon Hara about this person. It's not even that. It's just like random stray things that come to attack us during davening, and how do we stop those? Like that's going to affect, we're all on the emotion train right now. That is going to affect my emotions. So not necessarily dealing with a specific problem, but just little stray thoughts that come into us, and how does that affect your davening? So what does it usually do to you when you have that stray thought? Where does it take you? Distraction, somebody's saying. Where does that take you? Like what do you feel right after that? Guilt, for sure. I am the worst davener. Like, Hashem, you can't even take my tefillos. I'm just like, forget it. Guilt and frustration will lead me to close the siddur and then go make my gourmet glad order, which is on the way. But you know what I mean? Like, it's a weird thing that you will stop because of a stray thought. But then you're like, wait, is it weird? Because who's putting that stray thought in your head anyway? Hashem. But what version of Hashem? What? Like the Hashem who's not necessarily like Hashem. It obviously, yes, sorry. Obviously everything comes back to Hashem. You're right, Eno Movato. But when Hashem, as Hashem descends into this world, it looks like it could be almost like Sitra Achra. It could be the other side. It could be a side that's not necessarily connected to Hashem. But you're 100% right, because we'll get to it, how it really brings you all the way back to Hashem. So the point of this chapter is really not to feel bad about what you're feeling. Okay, so I'll give you the ends before we even get started. The answer is, don't feel bad about those stray thoughts, whatever comes in your way, the people that call you, the evil things, the things that you're thinking about. You're like, oh, I'm davening for this person, but I don't really know this person. Why should I even be davening for this person? Do you ever feel like that? You know, like you get like a Tehillim list and you're like, I don't know who these people are. And you just see their names. And then there's somebody that you know you see. But then you're like, oh my gosh, why am I davening for people that I don't even know and I feel bad that I'm not giving them my full feels? The answer is don't feel bad. And it really is like the Baal Tanya basically says over here, like if you want to ruin your whole Yiddishkeit, you're just going to feel bad about your davening. Because you're like, I don't daven enough. Or like somebody's like, oh my God, I forgot how Melech HaKadosh. And you're like, I forgot it's a Zeres Mitzvah. Like, right? And then you're like, oh, I'm worse. We like to do that sometimes. You're like, no, I'm worse. Like, right? So that's really a way to do it. But and then you say, like, what kind of person am I? Like, that guilt comes up. What kind of person am I if I start, like, meal prepping? Even though I don't really feel like we have so much meal planning now. After Yontif, we had, like, 1,700 meals. Like, now we don't have to so much. But the idea is that, and the simple advice, when he starts this chapter in chapter 28, he says, you do nothing about this. Just leave it alone. Don't respond to that thought. And here's a cool thing. He says that even if you have a distracted davening, it's better than not davening. And you even think, you're like, it doesn't make sense. Like a totally distracted davening. If you ever had this, I'm going to call out Paloma because I think she's listening on her way to work. But we had this conversation after Yom Kippur that like there was full on like whole Shachris Mincha where we were like not focused. Or maybe it was like her second day Rosh Hashanah, not focused. Looking at other people's clothing, trying to figure out why the mechitza is not clear. You know, like the kids coming in and out, pekalach snacks, whatever it was. And you're like, how did I even get to page 768? Doesn't make sense. But the idea is literally straight up, he says, the first thing is don't do anything about it. Now, there is actually a method, okay, and this is not really for us because we're all bein on him here. There is a method, though, for tzaddikim, which he brings up in this chapter, which is actually very interesting, and it has to do with the way that we learned before. And he says like this, there is this concept, and if you've been listening and following in, you'll remember that we have this idea that if you find something bad, he says, like, the concept is that I think it's like chapter 4, that every thought that you have has an emotion associated with it. Remember we spoke about, okay, let's see, remember, this is a long time ago, that your thoughts create emotions. I feel like you were definitely here, Tara, you were definitely here. Thoughts create emotions. We said, like, where are emotions created? In our thought. And therefore, what do we have to do? Right, we have to meditate. Yeah, like Moach Shalat Alev, we have to meditate on our thoughts to create emotions. Right? Meditate on things. I don't know, I sent out the album, if anybody started it. The first song, Hispatlos, is very, very much meditation. And it's about getting yourself to a place to think about Hashem, think about the greatness of Hashem, think about the little things about Hashem, think about godliness, even while chopping vegetables, even while in carpool, even while in traffic, even, you know, all the things that you're doing, think about Hashem, and that will produce emotions. And that will change you, right? So here's this idea where we know that thoughts create emotions. What if I'm davening and my bad thoughts get in my head and don't allow me to create emotions? You know you have good davenings, right? Remember those times where you like felt like you were like shifting worlds when you were davening for something? And then you have a regular day davening where none of your thoughts are connecting to your emotions. You literally just planned a 3-course meal, like whatever it is, if you are. Or you may be making supper for somebody who had a baby, so you have to send carrot muffins and soup and salad and whatever. You're thinking about that. You're thinking, wait, I'm such a bad person. My thoughts are not creating to my emotions. So there's this idea, and there's this concept, and it actually is from the Baal Shem Tov. It's not written, but it's an oral tradition from the Baal Shem Tov, that a person has a foreign thought or something that distracts them, and then they try to figure out where it's coming from. And then go into like the dark place where it's coming from. There's a chair here. Hi. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited you're here. We needed you for Chazara, Balki. Balki's always caught up. What we try to do is we try to find out what's...
Sorry.
Oh, is that an alarm for Israel?
Sorry.
That's crazy.
You didn't need to explain yourself at that one. It's not a regular.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. I did not realize that.
That's like crazy. So now we have all our davenings. Now we know what to daven for. We'll hear that sound. There's this concept, the Baal Shem Tov explains that you can go to try to figure out what's causing that distraction and then attack it. Like, okay, try to remember, I'm trying to remember which chapter it was where we said, let's say, like, I think it's in the Klippas chapter, like if you find yourself in a bad place, you try to figure out what your avoda is in that dark place and pull it out. The Baal Shem Tov says that there's a derech that if you have distractions, try to figure out why you're having distractions. Try to go into that world of distraction and figure out what's causing you. Okay, so anybody have an example of when they get distracted and they know why they were distracted? Yeah. Every morning, okay. And what is it? Like, what causes your distraction? You want to be in bed, right? And then you're like, oh my God, I'm a lazy person. I'm the worst person. Faigy, stop being lazy. Go wake up that lion inside of you, and you're a horrible person, and pull it out. That's one way of attacking your distraction. Anybody else have another distraction besides being tired?
What do you mean?
All the stress. Okay, stress. Okay, I'm super overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, I have a million things to do. I don't know how I'm going to get it all done. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make a list, right? And then you're like, 1 second. So you try to attack that thing. Okay, am I stressed? Am I overwhelmed? Why am I overwhelmed? Am I too much? Am I Yiddish guy? Oh my God, Faigy, you're too busy with this. You're too busy with that. And what you try to do, and this is according to the way of the Baal Shem Tov, is you go in and you pull out that negative piece of you and you put it in the washing machine and you clean it. And you say, I'm not going to be a lazy person. I'm not going to be a stressed person. I'm not going to be an anxious person. And you try to literally, like, the Tide stick that my kid buys for camp and she never uses, like, you try to, like, clean it. You walk around with. Okay, there are those people. There's, like, and me, I'm just like, like that. I know.
That's why I walk around with it.
That's why you walk around with it. I know. My kids are like, mama, and you, like, come over, like, people like that. And, like, that's not me. But the Tide stick. So you try to clean it. So the Baal Shem Tov gives this way. But the Baal Tanya says very, very, like in a very, very deep way. He says it here. He says, don't be stupid. Do not try that way. Don't even go there. Don't try to pull out your negative things. The problem with that is that you think you're a tzaddik, okay? And this is not a book of tzaddikim. This is a book of beinonim. This is a book of people who have perfect outsides and messy insides. Only somebody who has perfect outsides and insides can do that method of going into the darkest place and finding who the real part of them is and try to clean it. Because tzaddikim are standing on dry land and putting their hand in and pulling somebody out of water. When you try to help yourself as a Beinoni, and I hope that I'm a Beinoni, is like literally when you're laying on the floor and you try to pick yourself up from like a piece of hair like this. So imagine you're laying on the floor and you're like, oh, I got this. You can't lift yourself. You are literally drowning. You can't pull yourself out of water if you're in the water. So the Baal Tanya says very, very clearly, if you have a distracting thought or something that's taking you off your focusing of davening, whether it's internal or external or anxiety or laziness or busyness or, I don't know, a million other things, don't try to figure out why you're feeling those things because you are yourself drowning. You're not going to be able to get there. It's going to mess you up. Tzaddikim, however, they can. They really can because they have the ability to see that everything is good. We are struggling. We don't have perfect insight, so we're struggling all the time. And if we try to find out why I'm inherently lazy or why I'm inherently mean or not nice, I just told you I had this bar mitzvah with like my high school friends, and they said something like, "You were so mean in high school," and I was like, I was. There was like a little tkufa, whatever. It's like 10th grade. Like she was friends with my friend, and she stole my friend, and she was like, "You were so mean then," and I was like, "Oh my God!" And I went down like a deep, scary place of being like, "Oh my God, am I mean? Am I really mean?" And it like threw me off for like a good like few, and then I'm like, "Stop it, Faigy. You learned. You learned you should not have guilt. You learned you should not have shame, and you learn right now that you yourself can't go into that dark place. It's not safe for you. There's a reason that there are things that are prohibited. Baal Tanya says it is prohibited for you as a Beinoni to go try to figure out why you're distracted in davening, and you need to just move forward. Don't engage in that method. He says, Al tiyeh shota, which is like a fool. Like, don't be a fool and try to think that you're going to help yourself. You're not a tzaddik. Like, let's say like I'm trying to daven, right? I finally have a few minutes trying to daven. All of a sudden my baby like crawls off and like pulls on me and has a dirty diaper. And I'm like, I learned you're not allowed to daven if there's a dirty diaper. Okay, let me go change his diaper. And then you go make him a bottle. And then you go, and then you're like, I didn't even daven. Oh my gosh, I'm so distracted. I'm the worst davener. Why am I like this? And then that's it. And there goes your mincha, and then the tehillim that you had to say, and whatever, because you've totally lost yourself. So he says, leave it alone. Even though there are techniques, it's not for us. Not that we're not so great. We're not meant to be tzaddikim. We're meant to be beinonim. So he says, ignore it. Don't try to elevate it like the tzaddikim. The tzaddikim literally, they go into the darkest places and they lift up like neshamos of people that need help, and they figure out the darkness and things, and they're able to pull it up, but not us, okay? Now, how should I feel about it? So now I'm saying, okay, leave away my distractions, just say, shoo, whatever, we don't need you, not like Rabbi Yossi would always say, like you're a chihuahua, like just kick it to the side. Literally, it's nothing. But now, how should I feel about it? How do I go about my davening? So this is actually very interesting, and I find it like a lot, not actually like, not so often, but I've been feeling it, maybe since I've learned it, I started seeing it, like where you're about to daven, and then something comes up, and like you're about to do it, and then you put your sitter down, and then you walk away, and then you're like, oh, I forgot, and then you leave the sitter in the car, right? And you're like, why is the Yetzer Hara, like, what is it? And so the answer is, and this is like, if you've already been studying Tanya, especially for 3 years, you should know, sorry, I'm going to call you out all the time, too, you should know that the Yetzer Hara senses that something big is happening. It like smells it. It knows that you're about to break the shemayim and like your tefillos are about to go up. So of course he's going to send distractions. Like it's so obvious. Like every time like my kids, so I go to the aisle a lot and I was like, does anybody want to come with me? And then they're like, yeah, we want to come with you. I mean, they just want cookies and whatever, but and like they have a good time and they sit in the car and now they found a machine there and they could buy like cookies for $5. I'm like, but there are free cookies here. But they want to come, right? And it's like, but I can't buy my shoes. And then like my older one yells, someone took my sitter. And like everybody's screaming. And then we get in the car and I'm like, oh. And I'm like, we're all like I'm all like already wiped. And like we're driving to the aisle and I'm in a fight with this one. And this one's angry. And this one's like, I only wearing natives. And I'm like, it's freezing out. It just turned freezing. We need to do like the whole winter wardrobe. And I'm like, what is happening here? I wanted to daven. I wanted to do something good. And then I say, stop. Of course, the Yetzer Hara knows you're bringing your kids and yourself to go daven to save Klal Yisrael. Of course, I'm going to come mess with you, and I'm going to come in any which, what, shape, or form. If that means a missing shoe, don't have tights. I didn't have 2 tights yet, and it's freezing. And if I can't find my hand, and if I don't know where the keys are, the keys. Like when you lose the keys to the car, it's like forget about it. Your whole day is off, and you have the extra set, but your husband took it to work, and now you're like, okay, what am I going to do? Does this only happen to me, or like no? It happens, yeah. Or then like you have 2 sets of keys and they were both in his bag or in his whatever, we lose it, right? Of course the Yetzer Hara knows I'm about to get good feels. Of course I'm gonna come mess. You're gonna be met with resistance. So I think that the number one thing is you have distractions in davening. Ignore it. Don't try to go in there. Don't try to figure out what's wrong with you. I don't have any internal huge problems, and if I do, I'm leaving them alone. Then step 2 is to say, 1 second, why is this happening to me? It's happening to me because my tefillos are so big. And that actually is like the reverse of what the shame is. That gives you what? What? Chizuk. And it gives you like a huge boost. And you're like, what? Hashem wants my tefillos? If Hashem wants my tefillos, they must be really, really good. That he's messing with me so much. I think about this all the time. The people that don't daven, they probably have the ability to move worlds. Because there's something that's holding them back from davening, right? So not that you should stay home from shul and not daven and not try to daven, but the idea is about Tanya is saying that you should never feel bad about yourself when you're being distracted. You just have to give yourself the opposite. And this is why I love it. It's like such reverse psychology. It's like stop feeling bad about yourself. Realize that your tefillos move mountains. So that's why it's hard for me to daven. So that's like a very big step. He talks about actually this idea where if I was made of one soul, which anybody here knows that we're made of 2 souls, right? If I was made up of one soul and that one soul wanted good and that one soul wanted bad, then I would be like, okay, Faigy, you're a little bipolar, you're a little manic, like you know, sometimes, you know, you're talking out 2 ends of your mouth, right? Like you're very holy, but you also do bad things. But what do we know? Literally from chapter 2 in Tanya is that we were created with, we have 2 souls. We have a nefesh elokis, that's all it wants to do is connect back to Hashem, and we have a nefesh habahamis that only wants to be down to this world. So of course it makes sense I'm going to feel tension when I'm davening, and I don't have to feel bad about it because I'm not made of one soul. I'm made of 2 souls. So it's very comforting. Like obviously when I'm going to daven, it's going to start messing with me. One is going to pull down here and one is going to pull up here. So you have to find the middle balance. So these ideas, the whole theme, I think of like Tanya, and I feel like it's coming up a lot, is this theme of identity. Like, who are you? Am I a bad person? Am I a lazy person? Am I a stressed person? Am I anxious? Am I evil? Am I mean? In high school, maybe. But like, I was like, wait, did I have my nefesh elokis yet? Like, you know, because then I didn't have any like, any guide, any Northern Star, because maybe I didn't have and then I was like, no, it was 10th grade, but I'm the youngest in my class, so maybe I wasn't 13 yet. I'm like, no, Faigy, you were 15 and you were me, right? I didn't know how to work my nefesh elokis yet, right? We didn't know. But the idea here is that you don't have to worry. Don't worry if you have negative or bad things or being distracted by davening because you're made up of two souls. So one soul wants to connect back to Hashem, and one soul wants down here. I'm just going to channel the energy of the Nefesh Elokis. So the identity here is identify, when you're davening, identify with your godly soul. Identify. Say, I'm here, I'm showing up that. Or I can identify as my animal soul, because sometimes I daven for things that are very animalistic. The animal soul only wants to survive here. So what does the animal soul need? He needs food, and he needs money, and he needs children, and he needs a house. So when you're feeling those feelings of davening, like Banei Chayim Zonai, like when I want to live and actualize myself in this world, you can connect to your Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh Abahamis. But when you want bigger things and you're thinking big, and this is, by the way, the time to think big, like think limitless, like this is an ace, like Ratzon for it. Actually been listening to Joey Rosenfeld. Have you listened to any of his podcasts? Anybody listen to him? He has a podcast now. He just started right after the war on literally teaching Zohar. Like he spoke with Rabbi Chemeyer and Eretz Yisrael that the learning of the Zohar is like a Pesach for connecting us to the times of Mashiach. So he was saying that any time that the world is in a bilbul, like the foundation of the world is cracking, which this Shabbos is Parshas Noach, there's a mapel, right? And there's like cracking in the foundation. That's an Eis Ratzon, literally like for Tzipisa Yeshua, that you could daven for something very, very great and for the ultimate Yeshua, which happens to be the second song on the album, Chaim Guri album, Collecting Sparks. I feel like I'm doing like, subliminal, like sponsored. But if you really, by the way, if you have time, just take time to listen to it, because actually now I'm thinking about it, like Joey Rosenfeld was saying that the learning of the Zohar is what's going to connect us back, like to the times of Mashiach, because he said the Zohar is like a book of Rachamim, and we want Hashem's Rachamim right now. But all the songs on this album are very like Kabbalistic terms, like Tzipisa Yeshua, Aris Detayu, B'Kalim Detikun, like they are very Kabbalistic terms.
Over how like the songs that you guys have been working on for the last few months, and we knew they were coming out, came out, like they were ready in time.
You want to know something? It was ready almost before.
What's going on? And
Mendy Portnoy got stuck in Israel, and then the whole thing was like.
How many times, like, also Italian song, we could have changed. We could have.
Her daughter's putting out a song with Thank You Hashem, and it's incredible.
Like,
I just saw the cover.
It's like when Kali Yisrael needs it, Hashem like put the fruit for the matzah.
100%. One of my friends, Hannah, I actually just sent her the album. She's like, this is what the world needs. Like, we need to heal right now, and this is how we're going to heal. But the concepts in this album, when you listen to it, if everybody listens to it, I'll learn it actually next week with you. Like, we'll learn the album, because it connects you to a very big, big, big place. Not like, I need money, I need food, I need a house. It's very big. It's like global. It's like this concept of collecting sparks. It's almost an album like for not even Jewish people, because they can understand the concepts of it, but I think that's really what the world needs now. So what we're trying to do is connect to something big, and you connect to your Nefesh Elokis. So when you need these things, you go down here. When you need big things, you go up. And he says that you don't have to be scared or worried that you're a bad person, because you have two parts of you. So it's not really a foreign entity. The distractions are not a foreign entity. They're just like the branches of the animal soul. Understand? Like, we think it's something from outside coming in and attacking me and taking me away from my davening. No, it's a part of you. It's just a different part of you. It's not your animal soul. It's not your godly soul. It's your animal soul. So the main idea, really, I think, is to not lose yourself when you feel bad about it, which is like key. That's what 26 and 27 have been leading up to. Don't have shame. Don't have guilt. Don't feel bad. Distractions are good for you. But also recognize that you have two souls. Also recognize Yetzer Hara knows exactly who he's targeting, because your tefillos are so, so powerful, so he wants to mess with you. And then the last thing really is let's say you're very good. By the way, the concept of meditating is very good, but not when you're like being distracted by davening. You shouldn't try to like start like a whole meditation when you're like distracted. I always say like meditation begins before davening. If you know you want your davening to be pushed and like very, very powerful and have the most impact, you want to start with meditation. And that's why I always said all the way back in the beginning, start meditating for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes a day. You could get lost in it, but meditation before davening is good.
If you train your mind, then you're able to go to that space. Sometimes when there's a lot of thoughts, you could quiet your mind.
Right.
So you have that tool.
Right. So meditation is really Moshe Aliv. Like let me connect back to my intellect, which will create emotions. So if you could do it while you're davening, and the more you practice it, tap into it. But if you can't, don't let yourself down. Just work on your relationship with Hashem at that moment. But we know that practice makes you perfect, right? So practice meditation, which will get you to it. Then the last thing, which I'll leave you with, is that when it comes to distractions, and now I can't help myself because I can't stop myself, and I'm about to go down that route, but I brought my animal soul, and I gave all these things, but it's still not working. Humility. Humble yourself before Hashem and say, Hashem, listen, I'm here to daven. I'm here to daven for you. I'm not doing this for me. Sometimes we think that we're doing these Yiddishkeit things for us, but really we're not. You're going to shul, you have to be very frum, you have to dress very nicely in shul, because that's what I do. It's good for shidduchim. You're not learning Torah to make yourself look good so you could get a better shidduch. This is also a conversation I've been having over the weekend. I was talking to this girl and she's so cute, and she's like, no, I can't be on social media. It's really bad for shidduchim. And I was like, okay, I get that. I'm not going to let my daughter have social media either, but not for not good for shidduchim purposes, just because I feel like she's not going to be able to handle the whole, there's a lot going on there that's not, but not that it becomes such a house of cards for Yiddishkeit when you're like, this is to make me a good person. I'm going to have a good davening. You when you were a kid and you were davening, the principal walked into the room and all of a sudden your davening became so holy. When your Yiddishkeit is about you, yes, your distractions are going to bring you down. But the second your davening is for Hashem, humble yourself before Hashem, immediately you don't have to worry about distractions. Because whatever it is, if it's a distracted davening, doesn't matter. This is for Hashem. I came here. I'm literally giving my tefillos up to Hashem as a korban. We always say this, tefillos took the place of karbanos, which I never really understood because I still don't fully understand karbanos. Maybe we'll learn that once. Always so confused, on Yom Kippur. I'm like, what is happening here? You're they're throwing the goats, and my daughter's reading the English. She's like, what are they doing? I don't know, but I'll learn about this one day. I promise you, I'll learn about this with you. And it has to be something big with karbanos because all the other nations, they also bringing up karbanos, and I see what Hamas is doing, they use their children as. There has to be something to karbanos, but I don't fully understand. But when we get there, I will. But the idea that our tefillos are karbanos means when you say your tefillos are karbanos, it means you give it all to Hashem. So it's nothing about me. Who cares about my meal prep and my distractions and the baby with the dirty diaper and even deeper things oh my gosh, I'm a lazy, anxious, terrible, mean person. It's about Hashem. It's not about me. Stop making it about you and start making it more about Hashem. And that's what uplifts your prayers and kind of cools off the distractions. You put them in the freezer. They're not here so much anymore. You put them to sleep. You gave them melatonin. And then you're this is all about Hashem. This is not about me. Sometimes we make things about ourselves. I'm a bad person. Stop. You're not a bad person. First of all, it's your nefesh elokes. First of all, it's your nefesh habahamis. Okay, you have two souls. Secondly, it's about Hashem. So don't worry. So bottom line, even though this is a quick class, I think that what we have to understand, there's so much going on here, and we skipped a lot here in the chapter, but the idea is that if you want to prevent it, if you want to be preventative, start meditating. Start meditating and start finding Hashem in everything. Okay? Then you can also start to find Hashem in evil. It says when Moshe went to Paro, he was very scared to go to Paro. And it said, Hashem said, Bo el Paro. Look Paro in the eye and come to him. Face evil in its face and you got it. Because the deeper you go and the more and the darker it is, the more spiritual and holy it is. But this chapter is not really going there. We've done that. We'll get into this soon in the chapters of facing darkness and facing evil in its face. But this is not the time to do it, not by davening. When you want to face evil and it's very, very ugly, tell yourself that ugly is really, really beautiful. The ugliest thing is the most beautiful thing because you can't see it. It's what's covering it. Klipos. So number 3 on the album. Klipos. Right? We'll start referencing, instead of chapters in Tanya, we'll start referencing title track, the tracks, what track number. Okay, any questions on this? Yeah.
So if you've got very...
If anybody needs to go, don't worry. I probably should be also, but yeah.
Especially let's say in benching, right? And let's say after you're oh my gosh, did I...
Do you get, all of a sudden you're in Asher Yatzar while you're benching. You're how'd I get here?
Do you start over? Do you be okay, fine, this was just a bad benching? What do you do?
So... I don't know if you're allowed to bench over. Are you allowed to? Thank you. Are you allowed to? Shmona Esrei, if you were distracted and you forgot Yal V'Yavo, right. You go into it. But
if you're just so distracted, you're
I don't think that I say it, but also no guilt. It's
Okay.
like the worst. It's like our biggest. It's like I don't know if it's like like I'm saying, like, is it genetic? It's just something that we feel all the time, and we use it as a way to say, I feel so bad. I'm such a bad person. Don't feel guilty. You bench. Okay, move on. Weiter. Next. It's like I've been tapping into this guilt thing a lot. Not all the other things, but the guilt thing.